This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for How to Super Age with Elise Marie Collins. And interestingly enough, Elise is the guest on today's show. I mean, it's sort of strange. You're the podcast host, but you're also the guest. But I'm really excited to be doing this with Elise because it's really not a new book. It's a book that she wrote. How long ago did you write the book, Elise?
It was published in 2006. So it's a little over 15 years ago. So yeah.
And the publisher came back to you and said, hey, can you add to this, right?
Yeah, second edition. So it's always an honor to have a second edition because you can go in and make corrections. I added some new recipes and should we name the book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's your book.
The book we're talking about is Chakra Tonics, Essential Elixirs for the Mind, Body, and Spirit. And it's just a tasty way to look at the chakras, tying chakras to foods, but really drinks. So it's a lot of fun and it's an easier way to learn about the chakras than maybe going into a cave or
doing a Google search like I've been doing and trying to understand it. And it's funny because once I started doing that, I'm in this group for 7 weeks and we're learning how to find our emotional components that trigger us. And one of the participants keeps talking about the chakras. And it's like, do I dare raise my hand and say, I really don't understand, what you're doing. And so that's when I started Googling and it was like, okay, I cannot wait to get the book so I can actually read it and start to understand. But there's 7 chakras, am I right?
Yes, that's correct. There's 7 main chakras. And the reason I say that is because there's like miniature ones in your hands. I mean, it's one of those things I say in my book, they don't really exist. Like maybe someday we'll find them in some weird dimension or something. I don't know. But we can feel our shoulder and one's in the heart, of course. And so we can feel that part of our body, but there's no like X-ray. Oh, there's my chakra. It's like a way to, communicate with your mind, body, and spirit. And yeah.
Well, that's starting to make a little bit more sense to me because, I'm this person that I like to see things in black and white. And it's like, your heart chakra. Well, where is it? And should I go to the cardiologist and have him find it for me?
Interesting. Yeah. Actually, one of the things I added was about the heart center and about a cardiologist. And there's a cardiologist that wrote a book called When the Heart Speaks. I may have the title a little bit wrong, but it's Mimi Guarinari. And I feel like she wrote the best book on the heart chakra, and she wrote it from the perspective of being a cardiologist. Now I think she's gotten into a bit more of like integrative medicine and alternative healing, but it's very interesting because it really speaks to how the chakras are not, they're ancient wisdom, but they're universal. So what she learned was that as a cardiologist, she was a pioneer in stents. And I don't know how long stents have been around, but 10, 20 years, more than 10 years, like say 20 years. I'm not sure, but someone can look that up on Google. And she was a pioneer in that technology. I think her mother had died of a heart attack. So she really wanted to become a heart doctor because she didn't want the same thing to happen to other people that happened to her.
Sure.
So she became a pioneer in putting in stents. And what she found was she would put in the stents, which would unclog your artery. It's like a little straw or something, it clogs the artery, if anybody doesn't know. And what she found was she would unclog the artery, she would put in the stents, and then often the patient would like get their artery clogged again. It didn't change. What she found was that they needed something different, like each of them had different kind of, I call them prescriptions. Sure. Like she told one patient, get a pet. She told another, go out dancing, but they were ways to heal their heart. So what she discovered as a cardiologist was, and in somebody who really pays attention, because I'm sure there's cardiologists that don't notice
Right.
these things, was that she could do the physical work. She could do this miraculous surgery, but the person needed to do some kind of psychological change and healing. And that's really what the chakras teach us, that we need to do some changes on all levels. Maybe it's a dietary change. Maybe it's, a way that we think, or a habit. So it just pulls it all together and organizes it. And we're complicated. So the chakras can be complicated.
This is making a lot more sense now. And I'm so glad that we're doing this, because on this, I'm not even sure what I want to call this session that I've been taking. I have 4 more weeks of it. But I'm getting connected more to my body, mind, and spirit. So many of us walk around saying we can't do something. That little voice in our head is constantly telling us something that we can't do, that we're bad, whatever. And I had that in my head for so many years. And I started, thinking, why am I hearing that? Why can't I hear something nice? And I'm finding different ways to hear the nice words in my head. And they're my own words. I was making up those bad words. I know that. Okay. And it has changed my health considerably. So going back to what you're saying about the chakras, I was feeling a lot of emotional sadness. And yet when I started saying, wait a second, how can I just change that? And part of it has been diet, part of it's been exercise, but a lot of it is exercise of my brain, learning how to, shut those negatives off.
Yes, absolutely. I also work as a health coach. And so often, especially now, I think because people have been under stress in the pandemic, there's constant stress, the news is stressful. And I interview people and talk to them about their diet, about their lifestyle, about their habits. And I often find that it is the thoughts that they're thinking, or, are you really taking time to, love yourself? And in a way, like thinking kind thoughts towards yourself, giving yourself, there's a practice in Buddhism called giving yourself loving kindness, which is kind of abstract, but you're really literally, you can visualize, this is what I tell people: visualize your favorite pet, alive, or maybe a pet from childhood, or a baby. Because when we see a baby, we just go, oh, and then
Exactly.
Imagine giving that to yourself.
Yeah.
So you just kind of give yourself, that feeling, and then you just kind of, you can even imagine like it's ricocheting back to you, and you just flood yourself with it. Things like that, those practices, they're incredibly beneficial to our health. And how often we're sort of stuck on, it's got to be this or it's got to be that, or if I could find the perfect pill or the perfect doctor, when sometimes just a little shift in how we're thinking, how we're doing something. So I love to be kind of a detective, and that model of the chakras really can help anyone be a detective, or me to help people kind of look at like, what area do you need to work on right now?
And it's really so important, because so many of us, we don't know where to turn. We can turn inside and make things work, or we can turn inside and make things better. And yet, so many of these things that don't have a scientific basis. Okay. Those of us, in the Western world, we're saying, well, should we even be doing that? Should I even share that with my doctor? And strangely enough, when I started realizing that if I gave myself positive reinforcement, all the pains and traumas I was going through this past year started like healing.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent my doctor an email and I said, okay, if I only would have been smarter a year ago. And his comment to me was, it's okay, because you needed to face that part of yourself. There was a reason why you were doing that to yourself. And I said, well, I don't know what it was, and I don't even want to know what it is. I just want to move forward. So in your book, you said it's about recipes and things. Like, how does a recipe help us heal or help us feel good?
Well, that's a great question. So the ancient wisdom, there's different herbs and everything. The book has teas, smoothies, and juices. And all of everything that we eat or drink affects us in different ways. We know that. Affects, I just was talking to and she was talking to somebody with an eating disorder, and she was like, well, do you know what you eat is going to affect your mind? And she said, the person was like, what? And this is someone trained in Western systems. I think there may not be everything. There's so many things in the chakras. There's so many things, and putting them all together, like in a scientific way, people doing together. But we eat, drink really does affect our mind, which affects our body, and so on and so forth. So there's a couple things with each of the recipes in each book have different, ways that they, like, for example, the root center. One of the recipes is for almond milk, fresh almond milk that you make yourself. And that really grounds you and really connects you. And there's like a recipe with beets, and I have recipes for energy for your belly is you can't see my belly, but I'm touching my belly we call it, and I say belly center because they're Sanskrit words, but I also like people to just think, oh, belly. You don't have to think Manipura. That's the Sanskrit name for anybody who wants to know the Sanskrit name. Manipura chakra. And that center is more like our energy. So if we're low energy, or if we have a lot of inflammation, that kind of it's our literally, and it's associated with fire. So if you think of energy as like fire, maybe you have too much fire and you're like, I'm mad, you need to cool it. Or is it really low? Like you're having trouble getting out of bed. So we know that different things help us in that way. And then with the drinks, it's like liquid is so easy to assimilate nutrition. And it's also a nice way to just slow down. That's why I included rituals, because when drinking tea or even preparing a drink for me is like a ritual. So you can contemplate, if you're making a drink for your heart center, you can take that time to, think about your feelings, think about your heart, and, sip your tea. Because sometimes a lot of people I work with, they want to slow down, but maybe they're just like, I can't, I got to keep doing something. So what if you just thought about your heart center, or you did a little bit of reading, then you sipped your tea? It gives you something to ruminate on, to think about. Each of the centers have so much.
And that's interesting because one of the things I just learned about myself was that I wanted to get into a routine of doing some sort of an exercise, something just a little bit different. And I was making a cup of coffee one morning. And so standing at the counter, I was doing stand-up push-ups against the counter. And I did it like for days and weeks. And all of a sudden, one morning, I didn't get up as early. And so I didn't go downstairs first to make my coffee. And I thought, well, I haven't done that in a while. And so I mentioned it to one of the coaches I'm working with, and she said, don't think about doing it when you're making your coffee. Think about it when you're going downstairs. Therefore, whether you're making a cup of coffee, whether you're getting ready to leave for the day, she said, downstairs means that this is what I'm going to do. And so I've sort of made that, part of my cycle. So it doesn't matter if I'm getting up very early in the morning. Okay. I can still find, a couple of minutes to do those push-ups. And now the kitchen is my reminder. So if I go into the kitchen in the middle of the day, I'm finding myself doing that as well. And that's my way of slowing down. I know it seems silly. I'm slowing down to have a cup of coffee, but that's just part of my routine.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how we build habits and how we do those small shifts, and the kitchen reminds you. So I love that. Yes.
So these recipes that you have in your book, are they things that you had heard of along the way or you experimented with for yourself or family?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So teas, there are teas, there are smoothies. I've always been interested in health and ingredients and juices. I have some contributors. I had a lady that she runs a business in San Francisco called Juicy Lucy's. She makes wonderful juices. She contributed a few juices. I made some of my own. And so, yeah, they came from myself, my knowledge, my study, and other people contributed a few. The recipes that I added, which if you don't have the first edition, you won't care that there's 60 recipes, but they're always coming up with, not coming up with, but for example, I have a chai masala energy drink that's really delicious. It tastes to me like, I don't know if anyone likes chai, but I love chai. But this is without caffeine. It's got coconut water, cashew butter, and you can use any kind of chai. You could even use it with caffeine, but I say don't use it with caffeine. There's usually spice blends you can buy, and all these ingredients you can find on Amazon or in most local groceries. And there's also something called moringa powder, and you just use a teaspoon of that. It's a powder. It's like a kind of a plant. I've never seen it because it's native thing to Africa and Asia, but it's like a superfood, and it's really easy to get now. So many people are using this moringa powder because it's so plentiful and it's nutritious. It helps decrease inflammation. And turmeric is another good one because turmeric really decreases inflammation. And I think most of us, unless we're taking a turmeric supplement or making curry every day, we don't get enough turmeric. So that's in the energy drink as well.
It's funny when they say turmeric. Oh, I can't even say it. But when they started talking about supplements that you should take with the pandemic, a nurse friend of mine called me and she suggested that I take the pill. And I said, well, I found this powder. And I said, I've been using it on my salad. And she goes, well, what a great idea. And she said, and if it's the natural powder, she said, you're getting a better supplement than if you were taking, some of the supplements that she was going to recommend. And I said, well, I'm finally doing something good for myself. But it's interesting that we can find some of those ingredients and find all these exciting different ways of using them in our foods. I mean, most of us never would have thought about it. I grew up, my mother used salt and pepper on everything, but now I'm using, all different kinds of superfood spices that are supposed to be good for us. So,
yes, spices, that's really important because spices are so healing, and they're packed with vitamins, minerals, and they have so many compounds and things that help us. They're like, all spices are superfoods. So most of the drinks have, spices or similar ingredients that we can use, fruits, vegetables, all these things.
so what led you to the chakras to begin with? I mean, I know you're a yoga instructor. You have a degree in gerontology. Um, not necessary, for you to have gone this route. So how were you introduced to it that it's become like really an integral part of who you are?
Yes, I was introduced to them through meditation and a place that I meditated in Berkeley, and we meditated on the chakras, and I just fell in love with it. I loved thinking of the colors. They all were associated with colors and different aspects of our personality and being, such as the heart and the sacral chakra, which is around your sacrum. That one is all about your feelings and your gender identity, your sexuality. And we talked about the power. So I just found it was a way to sort of organize. And a lot of psychologists use, chakras because it's a way to sort of organize all these aspects of ourself. they could be considered. Oh, one way that I also talk about them, especially in this new edition, is there's two things: Erickson's stages of development and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those are similar Western ideas. So we kind of go through, it's like a ladder. Some people call it ladder, but we don't always go through it sequentially. Sometimes we kind of go up and down, but you need some to have the other. Like, for example, feelings. If you're just feeling some overwhelming feelings, that means your sacral chakra needs attention. So you're taking a class, what we do, we sort of like heal one area and then something else pops up. But if we're really in an emotional time, maybe we're grieving the loss of a loved one, that's of course going to happen. That's going to be, some of it's parts of life we're going through. And then but then we're not going to be as communicative in the throat chakra. Maybe we're so overwhelmed, our throat chakras are blocked. So they work together and build upon each other.
Interesting, because sometimes we say, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, and then we ask you, well, how are you feeling? And sometimes we feel a little bit embarrassed because we can't really explain it. It's like, I don't know, but I just feel it. And what I have learned, when I start to say those words, I just feel it. It's like, okay, take a deep breath. Where are you feeling it? Okay. Because it makes a difference for me on how I respond to it. Okay. Like a year ago, I started losing my voice, and I just like, is it really in my throat? Where is it? And what I found eventually was, I'm not exactly sure where in my body, other than the fact that I just wasn't feeling confident. And so I just was losing my voice, and they could find no good reason for it. And finally, the doctor said to me one day, he said, are you upset about something? And my first reaction was no, other than I, keep choking on my own words. And he goes, well, I think it has to be a little bit more than that. And so we expect our doctors in Western medicine to give us these definitive diagnoses. And the reality of it is that sometimes it's not going to be that definitive. We have to search for it. And sometimes we have to come up with the answers ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is where there's a lot of, right now we're so many people have mysterious illnesses or mysterious diagnoses, and that can be so frustrating.
Yeah.
That can be really difficult. So, and often I get clients that are either struggling with something chronic or, Western medicine is just not helping them.
Well, and we're not going to throw the Eastern medicine away. Obviously, there's a place for it all to come together.
Absolutely.
And I'm so glad that we do this regularly with you on your podcast, because I have learned so much. And what I want to tell our listeners, it doesn't mean that you have to do everything that we talk about on the podcast, because I don't think anybody could do everything, but find the things that work for you. Be open to some change. And I have to admit, Elise, when we first started, and I was looking at your first book, well, not first book, but Super Age. My thought was, there's just too much here. I'm never going to do it. And yet, as I've said over and over again, I just pick up the book, I open it up to whatever page it is. And, if that doesn't give me the, path that I want to go on, close it up, do it again. There's no particular path that any of us have to take to find our health and happiness.
Yeah. I just wanted to add to that I love to write, as you can probably guess, and I do it also for myself, to inspire myself. So I don't make every recipe every day or do everything every day, but there's something I can turn to, like you in the books. And I have to say, if, about a month ago, I met with one of my students who lives on the East Coast, and she came to San Francisco Bay Area, and she told me, I've been doing all of the herbs for menopause that you've been talking about. And my doctor says I'm doing it too much. I'm just too healthy. I'm not sure exactly what her doctor said, but it was just funny. Like, because people have questioned me. I'm like, I don't exactly know. Maybe she had, her female hormones. She stopped going through menopause. I'm not exactly sure, but her doctor noticed that there was a change in her physiology or somehow in her medical symptoms. And so I was like, oh, maybe I need to start taking the things that I recommend, so I think of it that way. We kind of bounce off each other, right? We tell other people to do things, and then they say, oh, I've been doing what you said. And then you're like, oh, I better do what I said too. Exactly. We need each other. We need community as a reminder. And really, that's another reason I would love to write, is because I find so much wisdom in the Eastern traditions, and I don't want to throw away the Western. I have a degree in gerontology. There's so much that the West has, and the West, I'm saying it loosely because we're a global community now. Right. But how can we combine this? I want to live in a world where we're looking at things from both perspectives and seeing the value in both. I want to bring the value together. So the more I put it out there, the more then it will be reflected, because we were brought up, if you were brought up in the United States, maybe if you weren't, most of us, I was brought up like American. There's immigrants, there's different ways of being brought up, but nobody taught me about the chakras. So I'm just saying that I'm steeped in a different way of thinking, but I've really gravitated, and it's taken me a long time. That's what I want to say. If you're new to the chakras, take your time, take it one sip at a time.
I love that. I love that. So the book is complete. Is it ready to be sold?
Yeah, let me share my screen. Yes. I'm going to show you it on Amazon. You can see the new cover. And it is available for pre-order. And if you're watching this after July 12th, we're going to have a book release party. So hopefully you'll be hearing more about that. Here's the book cover. Chakra Tonics, Essential Elixirs for the Mind, Body, and Spirit. It's available on Kindle or paperback.
And I'll tell you, those of you who are listening to this, who are not watching it on YouTube, you have to go out to Amazon and look at it, because you'll fall in love with whatever this delicious substance is on the cover. Do you want to tell us what it is?
I don't know.
You don't remember.
I think this is a cover design, but there is berry smoothie in there. I don't remember the exact title, but there's lots. There's also a prana rising rhubarb smoothie. This looks like I have a blueberry drink as well. So I think they took a photo, and I don't know if they took exactly the recipe, but you can make it like this. This one looks like it's got raspberries and blueberries and a little mint, and all those ingredients are in the book.
And I love it. And something I learned, and I don't know if I learned it from your other book or not, but somebody told me that when you are using berries, and specifically like strawberries, that don't cut off the greenery on it, that you can put that all into your blender, and that greenery is actually very, very good for you. Most of us, take off the good stuff. And so I have found, interestingly enough, since I've been doing that with strawberries, that I'm enjoying the drink more, but I can digest it better. So I don't know if that's going to work for everybody or not.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's so many things. And another one I'll say is the lemon peel has so many good ingredients. Sometimes we use, what is it called? There's a name in cooking, but you can use a little bit of the lemon peel. Right. the skins of fruits, because they're protective, they have tons of antioxidants. Also, yeah, that's why berries are so healthy, because they've got much more surface area than other fruits, and they're protecting the berries. And so berries are just packed with antioxidants.
Well, I make a smoothie every morning, and I try to use only fresh fruit. When I can't, then I use the fresh frozen fruits. Um, so, I'm not going to go out and buy canned fruit and do that, because there's too much sugar and preservatives in there. So I stay with the natural stuff. And I'll tell you, um, I haven't felt this good, I don't think, ever in my life. So I'm not one to sit and eat a bowl of fruit, okay, or eat an apple, but make an apple smoothie and I'm happy. So you said there's going to be a party on online. Is it an online party?
Yes, it's going to be an online party. I'm going to be streaming on Facebook and I think YouTube. So I'll give you guys my YouTube channel and Facebook in the chat, and then you can tune in. It's going to be July 12th, 10 a.m.
So
my
it's 10
time,
a.m.
1
Pacific
p.m.
time. Yeah.
Pacific time. Thank you. My time,
Yeah.
my time, just California. Your time 1. So I'll put that in the chat. Yeah. And then you can join in, and hopefully you can come, Karen, if you're not recording.
Well, I'll have to put it on my calendar because I certainly would love to be there. And
Yeah.
like I've said before, your books are so great for people, especially who say, I don't have time to sit down and read a book cover to cover. But pick up the book, read a page, read a chapter. I have to admit, when I'm feeling like, hey, there's just something that isn't right,
Mhm.
I pick up the book and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah, all right, I can do that too. Or, you know what? No, that's not for me. I'll have to think of something else. But it certainly is enlightening. Um, and then you bring us wonderful guests to your show.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was going to say, there's also, because you were talking about making smoothies every morning, I also have a chapter on how to make your own chakra tonics, because I can't put every ingredient and everything in this book. But once you get the idea, there may be ingredients that you need every day, and you can have those. I have a whole little section of my kitchen with different ingredients in either bags or jars. And then sometimes I'll sprinkle, I'll use recipes loosely, because they don't have to be followed perfectly. Sure. And just like any recipe, once you get the idea, like, oh, I like this, but maybe I'm going to switch up this, and I need more moringa, or I need more of this. Yeah.
Well, I think this is a great way to start the summer season, and to get ourselves feeling healthy in mind, body, and soul, because just being healthy in body is not enough to move forward. And I certainly have learned that the hard way. And when your, mind and soul is into it, wow, it's just a whole different way of living. So thank you for bringing that enlightening information to us. And in the show notes, we'll have all the information about the book. And you're going to give us the links to how to be part of the party, which I think would be very, very fun. So thank you, Elise Marie Collins and Chakra Tonics. I love it.
Thank you so much for speaking to me today. And I look forward to seeing you guys all at the book release party. We'll have some giveaways. We'll have some guests. It'll be a fun, interactive party. I like to do, lots of healing work. So expect to be uplifted. It's not just going to be reading. It's going to be a lot of, things that are going to get your chakras spinning.
Oh, I love it. Sounds wonderful. Well, thank you again. And we'll see you on your next podcast. And stay tuned, everybody. We'll find out who her next guest will be. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.